So you're over 30 and you still don't have a wife and kids? Are you still waiting for the one? Chances are you're missing something. Make sure you watch until the very end because I'm going to share the two most important traits to look for in a woman. Hello, everyone, my friends. My name's Alexander Simonov, and you're on the channel about mindfulness. I'm 31 years old. I have a wife. We've been together for over 10 years, and we have a daughter. I've been working with people's energy for over 5 years, and honestly, a lot of people have started coming to me. They did before. But now there are so many guys who are waiting for the one. They're 30 plus, right? And still don't have a girlfriend. Besides the energy work, I want to give you some key insights that you need to grasp right here, things that will really help you out. There will be practical tips, yes, and important insights to help you understand. Make sure you watch to the end. Let's get started. And you should especially stick around to the end if you're not just looking for a girlfriend, but for the mother of your children and a partner for life. Okay, so the first and most important thing I want to say is this. Get rid of the illusion that the one exists. Yeah, she might exist. That's true. That's all correct. I mean, in any case, there is a person you'll end up with for the rest of your life and with whom you'll have children. But you have to get rid of this hyperbole, this overblown idea that she is the one, that she's out there somewhere and you just can't seem to meet. That illusion, you see, is what stops you from seeing a promising person in the crowd, from actually meeting that person. Because when you do see her, you project that illusion onto her, and for some reason, it just doesn't line up with reality. In other words, you've built up this fantasy, you've overblown this idea so much that you can't see a good, decent person who could be right there with you. So how do you get rid of this hyperbole? Here's a practical tip. Look, when you meet a woman, you're not going to see her depth right away, are you? You're not going to know instantly that this is the one and that one isn't, right? That image you painted in your head, of the one and only, it really gets in your way, doesn't it? So just pay attention to the feeling. And I don't mean obviously her looks or her beauty, but, do you feel good with this person? Does anything resonate at all? Is there a connection? Because you might not get an instant firework display and a cocktail of emotions, for the one. That launch of the endocrine system, and then there it is, that one true love, right? So the first meeting can be pretty quick, maybe 5 minutes, a few minutes, right? And you just need to figure out if you connect with the person at all. Can you be honest with them, open? Do you generally like them? And that's it. If that's there, then move forward, right? So this will help you get rid of that overblown idea. And in the beginning, it'll at least help you move towards making further contact with the person. What I see is that people jump to conclusions. If you haven't spent 2 or 3 hours with a person alone, right? If you haven't really talked, don't jump to conclusions, okay? So until that point, don't, under any circumstances, decide if she's the one or not the one, right? So only after that first meeting where you've spent some amount of time together will it start to become more or less clear, but definitely not right away. The second thought is this. I see people who have convinced themselves that they're not worthy of love. Yes, it could be some childhood trauma, or it could be a painful past experience, when a person was in a relationship and it was negative, right? After which they decided that, in principle, they're not worthy of love. And so there's no point in moving forward. And that relationships in general are painful with constant fights and constant arguments. Like, why even bother? I'm fine on my own. A practical piece of advice I'd give to such people is this. I would look at your relationship with your mother and first and foremost, work on fixing it. It doesn't matter if your mother is alive or not, it can all be done. That's not what this is about right now, not for this video. How to adjust and fix that, your mother's love. But here's an important point. There are people who are smothered by their mother's overprotection, which prevents them from finding a girlfriend, their other half, right? So it's important that you hear me on this. There are those who have a problem that needs to be fixed, and then there are those for whom it's the opposite. They're overprotected. You haven't separated because the process of separating from your mother didn't happen. Your mother is very protective, loves you very much, and you're deeply involved. That connection is very, very strong. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just that it's so strong that you haven't separated. And so you don't have the opportunity to meet a girlfriend. As for those people who feel unworthy of love, who believe they're not worthy and that, well, there's nothing you can do about it, that everything is just hard and negative and so on, right? Just ask yourself the question, where did I learn this? Where did I come to this conclusion? And this, of course, requires deep inner work, a re-examination of all these values and, meditation and reprogramming your beliefs and so on. If you're watching this video, it means you definitely have an interest in this topic. And the most important thing to understand, this is like a key law of life, is life was given to you, so you too must give life. It's from this very realization, this gratitude for the fact that you exist at all, for the fact that you are living, gaining experience, an insane amount of experience, life in the human body consciousness before, in the body on creation. Once you realize this, you can't help but give life to another person. This is unreal. And you don't just want it, you need it. This is a natural process. That is the process of evolution and transmission, this very life. That is, these are, as it were, evolutionary programs. That is the key point. That is, if you don't have it, it doesn't matter how you explained it to yourself here. It doesn't matter how you feel. This is not normal. You are going against nature, against Mother Earth, against all natural forces that exist. This is not normal. This is the law. They gave you life, give me life too. The third type of people, yes, those I have seen and who come to me, yes, they somehow frame it in the sense that this is a life scenario. This is my life scenario. And in principle, I've been alone for a long time. Yes, that is, I'm already 40 and I'm okay with it. That is, this is my path. And in short, like in this life, I have it like this. Yes. This is all. This is complete nonsense. This is a person explaining to himself, yes, that is why it is like this. Yes. But in fact, of course, you need to look at the side of the fact that, like, where is the root? Where is the root? The desire to live and to move, to continue. Mouth, yes, that is, where did you do this? Somewhere you are unrealistic for a person to live alone. Unrealistic. Yes, that is, he needs a partner. He needs physical intimacy. Hormones are working. A lot of things are broken. Hormonal system, work of the first chakra, connection with the family. That is, such people have very serious and deep problems. And this is definitely not about this being some kind of life scenario or some kind of karma or some kind of I'm fine as is. Nothing good. The person has very serious, big problems that need to be solved. The fourth misconception is when a man decides that it is important to first establish and build a successful business. That is, to create a permanent source of income, to create a financial safety cushion, and then look for a partner and build a family, have children, and so on, and only when there is income. This is a losing game. It's a losing story because you can get stuck in this trap, right? And it's not a given that you'll, you know how to build a business, right? It's definitely about the number of attempts, right? It's not a fact that it'll work the first time, right? So how much time will that take? So I've seen people, right, who even at 40 still haven't built a source of income for themselves, right? And they're just stuck on this hamster wheel. And they still don't have a family, right? That's lost time. That's missed opportunities. I'll tell you that it's much more important to build a relationship, a family, right? Even if you look at the chakras, right? That's the second chakra. Family, relationships, children, right? And then comes, financial abundance, right? And an excess, let's say, of financial abundance, right? Because money for living always comes, right? Always, yes. For every person, money for living always comes. And friends, I was on that hamster wheel, right? That's exactly what I thought, right? That first you need to secure an income for yourself, a steady one, and then, think about children. But in fact, life shows that children, right, and the resources for them, they just come, right? So that's how it works. Plus, you activate the programs, right, of a father. So this is probably the most important, process. Like when, you weren't a father and then after that, right? So these are absolutely two different people, right? It's a completely different set of programs, right? It's a completely different mindset, right? So you're already thinking about how to actually, provide for your family, your child's education, and so on, right? The experience of a family, for a family. Ah, so in these programs, right, they help you to develop socially and build a business, but not the other way around. The fifth misconception, right, is that there's some kind of special point, a special meeting, right, where we, with this special person, right, the one, will meet and build a relationship, love each other, right? And well, there isn't any. Well, maybe there is, right? But not for everyone, for sure, I'll tell you. Not for everyone. So, for something to exist, you have to do something, right? And the fifth misconception leads a person to do nothing, right? So, if you're lying on the couch, right, and you're not going on dates, right, not communicating with the opposite sex, well, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen on its own, right? So, you need to understand that all people are different. And for some people, right, they're not without a girlfriend for no reason. I mean, if you can't even talk, communicate, show your depth, open up, right, then you need to go through that. You need to start, as I call it, work in the space. You just need to take simple actions. Set a goal for yourself, a minimum of, say, 5 dates a month. And on those dates, you'll at least, it's not about finding the one. Well, that too, right? But at least you'll start to get the words out, to break through those blockages, the fears that are holding you back, because there's no other way. Otherwise, you'll be 40, 50, and you'll think that's just your life script. No, you have to start doing something and work in the space. I mean, yeah, that's a bit crude, but just go out and enjoy communicating with the opposite sex. Friends, and now for the most important and promised part, why I told you to watch until the end, which is what are the two most important factors you need to know if you'll be with that person forever? Well, of course, love. Right, without that cocktail from the endocrine system, without, well, for those who feel and understand, without the sensation in the heart chakra. I mean, if there's no warmth, no fireworks on that level, then nothing will work out. But not everyone will have that right away, and it might develop, not on the first date. And that's why there's a second important factor that you need to see in a person through all sorts of questions, through communication, to understand, is this individual truly ready to grow? Do they have that spark, that drive for development? Because if they have it, that person will always consistently step over their own ego, their own personal boundaries, their own, ambitions, and so on and so forth. That is, the person will be ready to look at themselves from the outside, at the situation from the outside, at a conflict between you from the outside. Right. So these are the two most important points. Because when there's love, right, then a person will do that. I mean, after every conflict, you'll share what you really wanted to say, what I meant, right? And why this situation happened. You'll study, what behavioral patterns are, what mindsets are, right? How to work through all of that. So there you have it. And most likely, right? Even if a person has no desire to grow, but if they have great love, that will pull them along, encouraging them to move forward in life. Right. However, you still need to take the time to look at, how much a person, in their own unique way, has an perhaps inner motivation or drive, or maybe even a certain level of ambition that can influence their actions and decisions. Interest in life, right? I mean, if it's a person who just watches TV shows, and cooks in the kitchen, well, maybe that's what you need. not arguing with that, but most likely there won't be any depth in that. I mean, you'll just be sharing your feelings with the person and they'll just nod and support you. I mean, there will be support, but on what level? So, this desire to grow, right? It will help you be as open as possible with each other. You'll be able to share absolutely everything, right? You won't need any psychologists, in fact, right? Even friends, or like your best girlfriends, your best guy friends, who you can tell things you can't tell your partner. That's all complete nonsense. In reality, right? What's more valuable is the relationship between you and your partner. How deep you can go and share what's really inside you, what's bothering you, and why you behave a certain way and not another, and what you really meant. Right. And what's bothering you. I mean, sometimes a person is very deep, right? Very advanced in self-knowledge. They're intellectual, highly intelligent, right? They're conscious. And it's genuinely hard for them to find their other half, right? Because not everyone is into self-development. And even if they are, you might not align on certain points, right? You go in one way, the person's going in another direction. Like you eat meat and she doesn't, right? And just based on that, you might think that that's it. You're definitely not a match, right? And that's also a misconception. So these 2 points, love and the desire to grow, will help even if a person is, well, at the level of watching TV shows and cooking. So there you have it. I mean, if these 2 factors are present, right? And, you're conscious, right? And you're deep and highly intelligent, right? Then even with such a person, you can go very far. For your sake, they'll start learning about what interests you, right? So you'll be able to share and the person will study it uh, because they'll be interested in what makes you tick, right? And so this is another key misconception, right? That this person will necessarily be in the same circles as you are. That's far from a given. Far from a given. I mean, it could be a person on a much lower level than you, right? And but the desire to grow and love, right, will help them get to the point where they'll be just as deep, right? And intellectually conscious as you are. Right. So to practically solve this, right, this misconception, you just need to again use this sort of method of trial and error, right? And search. That is, go on dates and try different options, right? And not just the circle you're in. That could be a mistake. Friends, of course, I haven't covered everything, right? There are many nuances and many factors. But the 2 key ones, right, are just so that not even necessarily love, right? But just so there's a warm response, right? And a desire to grow. Yes, pay attention to these points and you'll definitely succeed. And be sure to rewatch this if you recognized yourself in the misconceptions I talked about, right? If it really resonates with you and you want to solve this issue, there's a link below. You can sign up for a diagnostic session. It's free, optional, and doesn't obligate you to anything. There will be more practical advice in future videos, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. It's going to get even more interesting. I wish you growth and development. Good luck with your issue.